I'm sure you've all used Google Maps. Whether it's to get directions to a new restaurant or stalk someone's house through Street View, we're all familiar with the tremendous resource that is Google Maps. Something that most of us likely take for granted is that just like all of Google's other products, Maps is completely free to use for as long as you want. This sort of freemium model isn't too surprising with search or email where everything you need is virtual, but Maps is a pretty grueling business that requires a lot of physical resources. From the dozens of satellites and hundreds of Street View cars that constantly monitor and take pictures of the Earth, to all the servers and supercomputers required to complete millions of hours of processing to seamlessly stitch together petabytes of data. And let's not forget about all the hours spent on blurring our license plates, faces, houses, and other personally identifiable information. Clearly, there's no question that Google Maps takes a lot of resources to keep functional and up to date. And while its value proposition to Google wasn't too clear in the early days, Maps has grown to be one of Google's most lucrative businesses. In fact, Morgan Stanley estimates that Google Maps will pull in over $11 billion in revenue in 2023 alone. For perspective, that's about the same as TikTok. And if we valued Google Maps the same way as Alphabet, Google Maps itself would be worth roughly $62 billion. That's about the same as Mercedes-Benz and more than Volkswagen and PayPal. Heck, that's enough to be a top 250 company by itself. But how does Google even monetize Maps? They don't show video ads or search ads, and there doesn't seem to be much opportunity to collect and sell our data based on just our Google Maps usage. Well, it turns out that Google has come up with some pretty creative ways to indirectly monetize Maps while staying surprisingly ethical. So here's the insane rise of Google Maps and how Google Maps really makes so much money. Taking a look back, the story of Google Maps takes us back 20 years to 2003. Like many of Google's products, Maps wasn't something that Google created in-house. It was actually something that they bought from four men named Lars Rasmussen, Jens Rasmussen, Noah Gordon, and Stephen Ma. Together, they had founded a startup called Where2 Technologies in Sydney, Australia. The idea for the platform was pretty simple: create a next-gen desktop map platform. But it turns out that this was a lot easier said than done, and pretty soon they needed a lot more resources, leading them to meet up with Google in late 2004. Initially, Google wasn't actually all that convinced about Where2 Technologies until the founder suggested the idea of converting the desktop application into a web platform that could be accessed much more easily. With that, Google would agree to take a flyer on the company for an undisclosed amount, which was likely well below $50 million. Where2 Technologies wasn't the only map-based company that Google purchased in 2004 though. Around the same time, they would purchase two other map companies called Keyhole and Zipdash. Like Where2 Technologies, Keyhole was a desktop application, but unlike Where2 Technologies, Keyhole was more focused on the macro scale, aka viewing the entire Earth and various countries as opposed to specific streets and directions. I don't think you'd be surprised to hear that this is what would turn into Google Earth, and Google would get this entire company for just $35 million. But in terms of value, nothing comes close to their third acquisition, Zipdash. In fact, Zipdash might be Google's most bang-for-buck acquisition of all time, as they were able to purchase this company for just $2 million. What did Zipdash do, you ask? Well, they specialized in using location data from mobile phones to create approximate real-time traffic data. This tech would be underappreciated and underused by Google for several years, but once smartphones started taking off, all of that would completely change. But anyway, going back to 2004, after all the acquisitions were done, Google would spend a few months refining the technologies before finally launching Google Maps on February 18, 2005. Apparently, Google Maps would get slashdotted the night before its launch. If you also don't know what that means, it basically means that Google Maps went viral on a forum the day before launch, which led to an explosive launch right out of the gate. But this traffic didn't last. You see, for a lot of us, myself included, 2005 probably sounds like the Stone Ages when it comes to the internet. But it turns out that there were already some pretty great mapping solutions on the market before Google Maps, specifically Yahoo Maps and MapQuest. And while Google Maps was superior to these offerings from day one, that by itself was by no means enough to displace the market leaders. For most people, Yahoo Maps and MapQuest already accomplished what they needed, and they had no reason to use Google Maps instead. So the general consensus for year one was that Google Maps did just okay. It pulled in a decent amount of traffic, but nothing too crazy. Google could have easily just called it right here and kept Maps a small side business, but they were determined to make Maps much more than just that. And as such, they would scrap everything and start over. Given the underwhelming response, Google would decide to do a complete rewrite of Google Maps. It turns out that while Google Maps was better than MapQuest and Yahoo Maps, for modern standards, it was still rather slow, so their number one goal with the rewrite was to maximize speed and optimize the user experience. And after about a year of work, they would get the platform to be nearly instantaneous, allowing them to make much more ambitious moves, starting with satellite view. Google would stitch together all of the imagery that they got from the Keyhole acquisition to create satellite view. Fun fact, satellite view isn't actually satellite view in most cases, it's actually aerial view taken from low-flying planes. The Maps team was actually debating on whether to call it aerial mode or satellite mode. But when Sergey Brin made the decision to call it bird mode, the rest of the team would decide to unite and defy Sergey by just calling it satellite mode. Apparently, Sergey would never comment on this name change. But anyway, satellite mode would come out in late 2005, and this was immediately a selling feature for Google Maps. Putting the actual utility of satellite mode aside, most users just like messing around with it. Being able to see your house and city from a bird's eye perspective was super neat. You kind of felt like you were a top secret spy or something. Google would simply take this novelty to the next level on May 29, 2007 with the debut of Street View. Street View was obviously an extremely ambitious project. Google was basically signing up to bankroll cars driving around every single street in the entire world. It did turn out to be a really popular feature though. Now, not only could you see your city from an aerial perspective, but you could literally walk through the streets as if you were actually there. But while satellite mode and Street View definitely made Google Maps unique and drove popularity, the number one trend that made Google Maps ubiquitous was, of course, smartphones. In fact, smartphone-based revenue accounts for nearly 90% of Google Maps revenue, which is not that surprising. Android is the most popular operating system in the world, used by billions of people. And you know what comes pre-installed on Android devices? It's of course Google Maps. So most Android users are naturally just gonna use Google Maps whether it's the best or not, just like how everyone used to use Yahoo Maps and MapQuest. All of this has allowed Google Maps to reach over 1 billion monthly active users. But while they were eventually able to get to a dominant position, it was by no means an easy road. While Google was able to acquire the core three companies that make up Google Maps for less than $100 million, actually making Google Maps successful cost a lot more money. According to one professor, just the upfront cars, cameras, computers, and manpower alone cost over $400 million. And Google never stopped updating their imagery. If anything, they actually do it more and more often with time. So there's no question that creating and maintaining Google Maps has cost Google billions of dollars over the years, which brings us into the question of the day. How did they make all of this worthwhile? Google's monetization strategy when it comes to maps breaks down into two main categories. Given that Google is an advertising company at the core, I don't think you'd be surprised here that the first category is ads, but it's actually done in a really tasteful, helpful manner. You know how when you pan around Google Maps, you see businesses like Walmart and Home Depot and Starbucks? Well, listing a business or location on Google Maps is actually completely free and basically anyone can do it, provided you have the right documents and rights. If you want to take this to the next level though, with custom branding and high visibility, you can pay Google a fee and basically make your listing a premium listing. To be honest, this seems like a win-win scenario. Users are able to find businesses more easily with their logos, and companies are able to increase their brand presence in a discreet, non-intrusive manner. But all of that is only half the story. Google's other mode of monetization is honestly far more interesting, which is APIs. You know how when you go to a website of a restaurant or a local bowling alley, you'll sometimes see a small map showing you the location of the avenue? Well, companies are able to do this thanks to Google's map APIs, for which they have to pay. And that's more of a small use case. Imagine what happens when someone like FedEx, Uber, Airbnb, Zillow, or DoorDash implements Google Maps. All I can say is that that would cost quite a bit of money, and that's just the most obvious implementation of Google Maps. Likely the most commonly used Google Maps API actually has nothing to do with maps directly. You know how when you start entering in a billing address or a shipping address, the address autofills? Well, that's thanks to Google Places API. Basically, every company in the entire world who collects address information uses Google Places, or a direct competitor like Microsoft's Azure Maps. If they don't, they're probably stuck in the 1990s. On a per-use basis, Google Places is relatively cheap. It's only about 3 cents per use. But think about how many times you yourself might use this every year. Maybe 10 times per year? That itself is 30 cents worth of revenue for Google. If 3 billion people were to do this every year, that itself is $1 billion worth of revenue for Google from just one API. I think you can start to see how all of this can add up to $11 billion when you throw in hundreds of different APIs and use cases. But even putting the financials aside, thanks to Google Maps, Google has been able to map out the entire globe in pinpoint detail. This means knowing the exact address and location of any and every commercial and residential property in the entire world. And if that itself wasn't enough, they also know the exact location of billions of people on this highly detailed map at any given point in time. If that isn't an insane amount of power, I don't know what is. And that's why even if Google Maps never even made a single dime for Google, Google would be the real winner when it comes to Google Maps. The fact that Google Maps pulls in $11 billion in revenue per year on top of that is simply a bonus. With historically high interest rates, the appeal of bills and bonds is higher than ever, yet traditional brokerages haven't really adapted with the times. They still expect people to use clunky bond tables, scroll through long overwhelming lists, and even use virtual keyboards till recently. And that's why we created our own modern bond platform, Silo. At Silo, we prioritize the user experience and the ease of finding and investing in the issuers you know and trust, so that you too can easily lock in high yields. Also, choosing a strong user experience does not mean sacrificing on safety. Every Silo account is insured by $500,000 in SIPC insurance and $2.5 million in FDIC insurance. Also, all funds deposited on the platform will be maintained by our trusted custodian, Interactive Brokers, who has experience managing $373 billion worth of assets over the past 45 years. So, if you're looking for a modern way to invest in bonds, please consider checking out Silo in the description below. One business that's taken this philosophy to even the next level is WhatsApp. Check out this video to learn more, but until then, I'm Hari, and I'll see you guys on the next one.